Becky. Welcome to Books and Beads. We're talking about all things books and all things crafty. I'm making beaded bookmarks for every book I'm reading this year. And welcome to my first monthly wrap-up. Here's everything I read in the month of March. I read 7 books this month. I have 6 of them right here. One of the books I read was an ebook, so that gives us 7 total. So this was a good month. We had a lot of different reads this month, some that are a little bit outside of what I normally read, some darker things and some publisher mail and an arc or 2. So very exciting stuff. I'm going to go through all the books I read this month, give you my thoughts on them, try and keep it spoiler free so you can get to know the book a little bit better and make a decision whether you want to read it or not. I'll also show you the bookmark I've made for each book. Some of these books I haven't made bookmarks for yet, but they're coming soon, so make sure you're following along on all the socials to see everything. All right, the first book I read this month was Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the second book in the Shepherd King duology. It is the follow-up to One Dark Window. So this book is beloved on TikTok. Everybody is really into it. The vibe and the aesthetic makes it something super easy to get into. So that's kind of why I picked up this duology, is because a lot of people love it on TikTok. But for whatever reason, I could not fully get into this series. Like, everything's there, the vibe is there, the aesthetic is so good, the magic system is easy to pick up on, but I just wasn't ever fully into these books. And that might be a me thing, it might be based on the time I was reading them. It just wasn't fully great for me. They're a fun time, they're fast to read, but I wasn't falling in love with them like I thought I would be. In the second book, there's a bit more POVs. You get more insight into Elm's characters and Ione, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but you get more insight into her character too, and I liked that. I liked the different POVs that we got in this book. And yes, you get Raven's POV too. I did like that this series was a duology. Since the Nightmare and Elspeth are linked in a duology kind of way, it made sense to have 2 books to kind of represent that relationship between them. I thought the ending was really good. It wrapped up things nicely for the whole series, so I felt satisfied with the ending that we got. It's just I wasn't fully in love with these books, and I can't explain why. If you love these books, let me know in the comment. Or if you feel like me, let me know why that is. There's just something missing there for me. I did give this book 3.5 stars. I enjoyed it, I just didn't love it. I do still recommend this book. I think you should absolutely check out the Shepherd King duology. If you like fantasy, if you like a little bit of the dark fairy tale vibe, they're absolutely worth checking out. A lot of people love them. It could just be me, so definitely read them and make your own decisions. Second book I read this month was A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. Oh, this was such a fun time, and look at those edges. So I will admit, the cover and the edges are what really made me want to buy this book. I couldn't resist. So I became obsessed with this book fairly quickly because the love interest in this book is named Bjorn, and that is my husband's name. And you don't see a lot of Bjorns in literature or in life. It was very exciting to have a romantic interest named Bjorn, and it was a great story. Another thing that I loved about this book was it reminded me of Skyrim. I am a Skyrim girly. I love that video game. I replay it all the time. It's just kind of like a comfort game to me. And this book definitely had Skyrim vibes. There's a whole chapter where they're stuck in a tunnel with Drog. That was so easy for me to picture and get into because of Skyrim, and both draw on Norse mythology and folk tales. There's Jarls, so it was very easy to get into if you like Skyrim. So this book is about a Viking woman who is chosen. She is chosen by the gods to have special powers, and so is considered unfated. She can choose her destiny ultimately, but she is caught up in the power play of kings and Jarls. I love that this book dives right into the action. Like, almost right away we had a 2 people, 1 horse situation. It was so great at just getting right into it, and lots of action because it is a Viking romantasy. There's a lot of cool action. Another thing that reminded me of Skyrim is they have these like magical weapons. So Bjorn has an axe that flames up, and that totally reminded me of Skyrim too. There's really good banter between Bjorn and Freya, our main character, as well. There was like one thing I kind of saw coming at the end, but there was still more twists to the end that kept my interest and surprised me. So it was a little predictable, but then it added in a little twist to that predictability. So I enjoyed that. I am excited for the next book in this series. So this is book 1 in the Saga of the Unfated series. I'm definitely ready for book 2. I gave this book 4 stars. I definitely recommend it if you're a Skyrim person, if you love Viking mythology, Norse mythology, if you like something action-packed with a little bit of romance, you're definitely going to want to check this one out. Next book I read was Before the Devil Knows You're Here by Autumn Krause. This was actually a gift from a book fairy. My friend Diana sent this book to me from my Amazon book wish list, and I was so excited about it. First of all, let's take a look at how beautiful this book is. So this is my second book from Peachtree Teen Publishing. I got The Absinthe Underground from them as well. That's also a really beautiful book. So the dust jacket is really pretty, nice and foiled, but then you take the dust jacket off and the book itself is really beautiful. It's got that gorgeous art that continues on to the hardcover. And then the chapter pages too are just really beautiful. They've got like creeping vines on them. So this is a beautiful book. Every book I've gotten from Peachtree Teen Publishing so far has been just stunning, and the stories have been really good too. So Before the Devil Knows You're Here, this is a Johnny Appleseed retelling with a dark twist. When I heard that, I was like, oh, I want to read that so bad. I have a weird obsession with Johnny Appleseed. I love the Disney animation short of Johnny Appleseed, and I think that's because every year on Johnny Appleseed Day at my elementary school, they would play that short, and then one of the teachers would dress up like Johnny Appleseed and just pretend to be him all day. So that just really sticks out in my mind, and I'm not sure why that happened, but it was always a fun time. And so I think that's why I really like the Johnny Appleseed legend and story. So a dark retelling of that sounded right up my alley. In this story, John becomes a monster of legend. He's called the Man of Sap, and he made a deal with the devil and is forced to plant all of these apple seeds. They never run out, so he has to keep planting them, and they actually plant poison apples. The story starts when he steals our main character Catalina's brother from his home, and she has to go on a quest to find him and get him back. It reminded me of Labyrinth in that regard, where it's a girl trying to find her brother stolen by this legendary person, and she meets all of these crazy characters along the way. This book feels like being stuck in a dream. There's just such cool magical imagery, and there's a lot of neat creatures that Catalina runs into and meets along the way. I don't want to say too much because I think part of the fun of this book is discovering those creatures as Catalina does. Loved the blending of folktales, legend, and myth in this story. It felt like an urban legend or like a ghost story that your grandma's telling you around the fire. It's a pretty quick read and it has a very satisfying end. I gave this one 4 stars. I would absolutely recommend this book for anyone who loves a little horror story and anyone who loves Johnny Appleseed like me. Next, I read The Swindler and the Swan by J.A. Good. This is my second Swan Princess retelling of the year. I'm on a quest to read like every Swan Princess, Swan Lake retelling, so if you have some suggestions, leave them in the comments. I've already read A Fate Inked in Blood. I read that one the month before in February, and I've read Swindler and the Swan this month. I want to read Mercedes Lackey's The Black Swan next month, and I think it would be fun to do a video comparing all 3 and talking about those. So if you have any other Swan Lake, Swan Princess retelling recommendations, please let me know. It's my mission to read them all. I absolutely loved this Swan Princess retelling. It kind of combines that retelling with the Hades and Persephone legend. It was a really fun time, pretty spicy, pretty fun, and I knew it was going to be a good time just from the first chapter name alone. Like, I just opened the book and I was like, oh yeah, we're going to have a good time with this one. Chapter 1 is called The God of the Underworld is a Petty Bitch. So I knew it was going to be great just off of that. And I loved it. It was such a fun time. So basically, Hades steals Demeter's swan that she keeps on her lake. It's a prized possession of hers. But when he takes the swan to the underworld, he realizes it is Demeter's daughter, Persephone. She's been cursed to live half-life of a swan, half-life of a human. But in the underworld, she is human. The curse doesn't affect her as much in the underworld. So she's like, I'm staying here. I don't want to go back to my mom. She turned me into a swan. Please no. This book felt like watching Vanderpump Rules if it was about the Greek gods. They all kind of speak like they're on a sassy reality show, so that was a lot of fun. Persephone's character journey is really well done. She really develops and grows throughout the story. I loved her relationship with Hades, obviously following Greek mythology. Those two end up married, they end up together, and that is the case in this story as well. It was so fun. If you like spice, if you like Greek mythology, if you love the Swan Princess, you're going to love this book. It's a good time. I gave it 4 stars. It's spicy, funny, romantic, and epic, and it felt like it was set up to continue. I don't know if there's going to be more books written by this author in this same world, but it felt like it could be a series, and I would definitely read more. Next, I read Penance by Eliza Clark. This was heavy. It was wild. It was unlike anything I've ever read. It's written almost to seem like a nonfiction true crime story. At the beginning, I was a little confused. I was like, wait, is this a real story? And it references real crimes like the Slenderman case that was documented in an HBO documentary. So at the beginning, I was a little confused, but it is fiction. Thank God. It's very dark. It's about these teenagers who have committed a horrific crime, and years later, a journalist starts poking around to try and uncover more of the story and more of the background of these girls that are involved in this case. And it's really interesting. It transcribes podcasts that are not necessarily real. It includes letters from the girls involved in the case. It really felt like a true crime situation. And it makes you think about how we consume true crime and the implications behind that. It also makes you think of like how you interact on social media. This story and this crime takes place in 2013, like at the height of the Tumblr days. And so it really makes you think of like how people, especially teenage girls, interact on social media and how that can affect them in real life. This book really painted a full picture of all of the characters involved. They felt really realistic. Like I said, I thought this might be even a real story at the beginning. And it made you, like, it drew you into their, like, gossip and their drama. Like, I found myself going like, oh, okay, well, then what? Oh, well, how did she feel about this? It did a really good job of, like, putting you in the world, in their characters. So the situation and the characters and the story are detailed meticulously, and then at the end it's all put into question in a crazy way. I don't want to give it away. So then you think, well, what was the point of that? It was kind of maddening at the end. The narrative definitely makes this story feel real, since it's pulling from podcast transcripts, text messages, letters from the girls. It feels so well-rounded and so realistic. There's a whole part where one of the girls is playing The Sims, and I'm like, oh, this is so relatable. Because not only am I a Skyrim girl, I'm a Sims girl. I was addicted to The Sims as a teenager. So all of that felt really relatable and true to life. I'm still unsure how I feel about this book fully. I can't stop thinking about it, but there were things that were a little like too disturbing to me. Definitely check the trigger warnings on these. There's some things that are mentioned in this book that, had I known they were in there, I don't know if I would have dived into it. But I did like the Tumblr girl scene that they go through, the true crime aspect of it. I am interested in true crime, but I have my limits on some of it. But this was an interesting read. It does make you think, and the narrative is super, super detailed and super different from other books that I've read. Right now, I'm like hovering on giving it 3.5 stars because I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know if I enjoyed it, but it certainly made me think. I would only recommend this if you're super into true crime and kind of want to think a little bit more about how we as a society consume true crime. I didn't know how to go on the bookmark, so I just got inspired by the fact that it takes place in a seaside English town, so added like little beach elements to my bookmark, and it actually turned out to be really pretty, so the bookmark is a nice positive. The next book I read is Beautiful Villain. My camera just went flying, so apologies if the frame has shifted. I forgot I bought this mic and I'm hooked up to the phone, so I tried to walk off and everything fell. Oh well. Next book I read was Beautiful Villain, and that is by Rebecca Kenney. Now this is an ARC, an advanced reader copy. I received the ebook from NetGalley, so this one is not out yet. This was a Great Gatsby retelling, but with vampires. So it was actually a lot of fun. And I was reading it and I could tell that they were like leading up to the vampire reveal. And I thought, oh, I hope they don't spend the whole book like not revealing this, because it's obvious from the beginning. But no, they get into it fairly quickly. So that was a fun time. I liked the twist on it. I could tell that this author loved the movie, the Great Gatsby movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, because some of the scenes felt almost right from the movie, and Lana Del Rey's Young and Beautiful is mentioned. So just go into it knowing that it's a little silly and a little fun, and I think you'll have a good time. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. Nice little light read after Penance. Definitely a nice palette cleanser, but I thought it was cute. All of the characters are named the same as the characters in the original Great Gatsby. I don't think it's nearly as like reflective as the original text, but Great Gatsby with vampires is a fun time. It's a little like self-referential. It kind of pokes fun at its own genre, so it's a good time, and I really enjoyed reading it right after Penance. Reading something so dark, going to something a little more light and romantic. I liked it. I would give it 3.5 stars. My last read for March, I read The Lady Waiting. This is by Magdalena Zyzak. I really enjoyed this one. It is about a Polish immigrant who comes to America, and she's hired by this Hollywood couple to kind of be their housemaid, but then they rope her into this art heist. They have her steal this painting of Vermeer's The Lady Waiting. And so it feels kind of like White Lotus, and it also feels a little bit like Inventing Anna. It's a really fun heist read, which isn't something I've really read a whole lot of, and I thought that the voice in this book, the author's way of describing things and the characters' ways of describing things were really interesting. There's a lot of like double speak going on and play on words. The characters are very witty in that way, and they're crazy characters too. So Viva is our Polish immigrant, and she ends up working for this couple. Bobby is the woman's name and Sleeper is the man's name. So everybody has like really interesting names that are easy to remember, and they're also like super big characters. Bobby's very eccentric, you know, she's going to these high-end stores acting like she's going to spend a ton of money but steals something, and yet she lives in a mansion. So they're all full of these eccentricities and quirks, and they're a little bit like oxymorons. So it's a really interesting read, and I like where it ended up. And interestingly enough, the book takes place in 2018, but it's told from the future of like 2072. And you get hints of that throughout the book, which I'm like, oh, this is really like, why are they bringing up that this is in the future? And it kind of comes into play at the end. But I don't know, I thought it was just an interesting like aside to add in there every once in a while. They'd be like, yeah, you know, you might think like this is so out of fashion, but in 2018 it was all the rage. So that was an interesting twist on the narration. I enjoyed this. I mostly read this on a plane on my way to Las Vegas. So that was kind of a fun plane read, and it was a good time. It had like elitism and espionage and art and, you know, just interesting like relationships between the characters. So that was a fun time. I would give it 4 stars. It was a fun read. And this one was actually sent to me. This is my first publisher mail ever. This was sent to me by Riverhead Books. So thank you, Riverhead, for sending me this. I really enjoyed it. All right, and then on the crafty side of things, I did some more bookbinding this month. I bound a couple copies of Manacled for my friends, and I decided to try the all-in-one volume of Manacled for this bind. It is really thick, it is really crazy, but I think it turned out really lovely. I've got it all wrapped up to give to my friend, and I can add in a video that I took of this. This is my first time using heat transfer vinyl for the front. So I printed this out. I have the print then cut feature on my Cricut. Oh, and that's a whole nother story. I had to completely take apart my Cricut to fix something on the machine just to get it to work. So I completely took apart my Cricut, then put it back together. Thankfully, I figured it out and it works now. And so then I did print then cut and then ironed on this vinyl. I just found some old artwork and put a frame around it in Canva. I got these files from a wonderful creator on TikTok. And then I tried to do some fun custom end papers. I know next time to use a thicker paper for this because gluing them on, it kind of, because it was so saturated with ink, it was kind of hard to do that. So there's some wrinkles on the end papers. But for a first try, I think it turned out really nice. And I got a wonderful typeset from another creator that has beautiful chapter pages as well. So I'm super excited with how these turned out. I made them for my besties as a gift. We've all read Manacled or are reading Manacled, so I wanted us all to have some physical copies. And I like how these turned out. I learned a lot. I can improve on the next time I do this, but I thought it was a good first try for the big one, the all-in-one volume of Manacled. Other bookish things I did this month. I did go to Las Vegas and I went to some fun bookish places. I will have more videos about that coming up. And I also did a reading retreat with my friends. We rented this cute little Airbnb in the Pacific Northwest on the ocean and just read all weekend, had fun dinners, got in the hot tub. I made a video on that. You can see that on my channel. Stay tuned. I've got more fun bookish stuff coming up. Can't wait to get into April's reads. I've already started Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, having a good time with that one. And I want to read more Swan Princess retelling, so the Black Swan is up for April. Yeah, so that's a little look at the books and crafts that I completed in March. So let me know if you've read any of these books, what else you read in the month of March, what you're looking forward to reading in April, if you're working on any bookish crafts or going any fun bookish places. I'd love to hear it. Make sure to give this video a like, leave a comment, and make sure to subscribe to my channel. Stick around so we can talk about books and crafts. Thanks. I'll see you next time. Bye.